Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Summer League, it's over, but the crazy world of the NBA always has tons of stuff going on. So, we're going to get into some signings today, some rumors, some trade talks, all kinds of things. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, how you doing?
Good, man. I'm a little sad. No more NBA hoops
Yeah.
for a couple of months, 3 months or so. Well, I guess about 2.5, right? Beginning of October for preseason, but we'll soldier through. We'll get through it somehow. I guess there's Eurobasket and all that other stuff to watch this summer, so we'll watch some of
So,
that.
somehow, some way, we will make it. Before we dive into our NBA stuff, we have yet to talk about Thor.
True.
We
Good point.
what did you think? We'll do a Cliff Notes version here. What did you think of Thor: Love and Thunder?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it relatively spoiler free.
Yeah,
Um, I enjoyed it. It was how I've described it to folks who have asked is it was good. I I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was like top tier MCU, but it was still good. I think the bar is just very very high now for the MCU. So I think it's like unless it's one of those ones where I'm like holy crap, and I have to like sit for like 30 minutes after to process it, then it's probably good, and it was good. I enjoyed it very much. It was funny. Both my daughter and I, she's huge into this stuff too. We were
yeah,
both kind of like it could have not happened, and like I don't know that the MCU would have missed it. Now,
right.
when we've said that in the past, it tends to turn out later something happened, or it's like, oh, hey, that's huge now. So I'm gonna leave open the door for that to happen. But I liked it. I wasn't completely blown away.
It felt like previously in the MCU there was the Infinity Stone plotline that was connecting everything. That would just it would be, you would have some little glimpse of things here or there throughout a number of different movies. I can't quite see where all this is going. And I know we've heard about like Secret Wars and that kind of
Yep.
stuff going in there, but it's like we're not really getting the tastes of those things coming in yet. There's the multiverse stuff, but Thor, it felt like like you said, it just felt like kind of a standalone, its own thing. There wasn't that whole interconnectiveness to it. But on a smaller scale, just in terms of taking it as its own movie, I enjoyed it, and I took my five, actually she's six today, year old daughter to it,
Happy
and she loved it.
birthday.
And she loved it, particularly the part at the end. So I was very appreciative of the fact that it wasn't Doctor Strange, where clearly you're not taking kid to it, where
Sure.
it was more kid friendly. And for me, what made the movie more enjoyable was that there were so many moments where I look over and she's just grinning from ear to ear and busting up and having a good time with it. So I could see where if I wasn't there with the kid though, I'd walk out going, okay, well, whatever. That was fine. But it was worth seeing. But again, my specific situation, watching that with a younger kid, definitely enhanced my enjoyment of it.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty kid friendly as
Yeah,
far as there's a lot of involvement of kids in it. So there that part I thought was kind of cool too. So yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah, it's funny because I was trying to so one of my other friends he still has not seen it yet, and he was just like, man, he's like, then maybe I'll just wait. And I was like, it was still good. I was like, I still enjoyed it. I still had a great time. It wasn't I didn't come away like wow,
right.
like blown away and like holy crap. And it does feel a little bit like some more of the bigger, maybe how do I put it? The like overarching plot point stuff
Yeah,
is coming out of the TV shows
yeah.
now. Like maybe that's driving more towards some things. Comic Con's this week, so maybe we'll start getting some announcements here of like what's next and what's coming because we know I think the next movie is Black Panther 2.
Right.
So that I think is the next movie, and the next TV show is next month. That's She-Hulk. So we'll see how that comes together and pull stuff in. Ms. Marvel was really good. I really enjoyed it. It had a I don't think you've seen it all yet,
No,
right?
I am watching that this week. That's
All
on
right,
my to-do
perfect.
list for this week to watch it.
There's a really stick with it all the way through the credits of the last episode because there's a
Oh,
kind of cool thing at the
okay.
end. That is no spoilers here, and no spoilers in the comments either, people, because we know some people haven't had a chance to watch all this stuff. Summertime's a busy time, so but yeah. So I guess I'll give it a thumbs up for Thor. I don't I'm a sucker for all this stuff. I don't dislike any of it.
my last thought on this, and then I promise we'll get to basketball. I felt like Christian Bale was too good.
Yeah,
Like
he was
like
great.
Christian Bale was at the Drew League. That's what was going on there. And not to denigrate, Chris Hemsworth or any of the other actors that
Sure.
were in the movie, but it felt like he was on a different level than
Yeah.
everybody else that was there with him.
Yeah, that is one of those chewing the scenery kind of performances where he's just, he dominates every scene he's in. And
Yep.
it's like, you almost kind of wish that it was, one where there was like a bigger role for him to play, moving forward. Sorry if that's a
Yeah.
spoiler, but I think everybody expects that. But yeah,
Right.
but I also think for him, he probably kind of liked the idea of like, I get to drop in, play a really
100%.
fun, cool character for, one, and then I'm out of here and off and on to whatever my next
Check the
project.
box. I did an MCU movie
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
move on to whatever else you
Yeah,
want to do.
he's fantastic.
Yeah.
He really is good.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Let's get into some NBA. We've spent the first 6 minutes of the show not even talking basketball. So let's get into it here.
Well
And
done for an NBA podcast.
That's right. That's right. Let's start things off with my Los Angeles Lakers. Oh my goodness. Russell Westbrook madness. That's all I can call it at this point, because all we're hearing is it's terrible. The relationship is icy. And next thing you know, Chris Haynes is coming out with a report saying LeBron and Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis are on a phone call and they're committing to each other and back and forth. And Russell Westbrook is firing his agent somewhere in there because the agent wants him to stay with the Lakers, which implies that he doesn't want to stay with the Lakers. Who knows where anything is at this point, Keith? My head is spinning. Maybe, though, it's because I am too absorbed into all of this. You're a little bit further removed. Can you make any sense of what is going on here with the Lakers and Russell Westbrook?
You look to the wrong place for help, my friend, because I don't know that I'm going to get you there. But I do think there was probably my thought was when we saw the statement to ESPN from Thad Foucher's former agent about how basically they were splitting up, and then more detail in a statement like that than we've ever seen before.
Right.
Very detailed around like this is where it was, and as you said, he lent it to believe he has been counseling Westbrook of, hey, let's just see this through. Let's see what Darvin Ham's plan is. Let's see where this is now. Westbrook only has so much say anyway, right? He's under contract, no kind of options, none of that stuff. So the Lakers can trade him whenever they want and do whatever they want. They could also waive him if they wanted. But it was also made very clear several times by several people that Russell Westbrook has never asked for a trade from the Lakers either. Mm-hmm. He's just, content to
well, he's
content to be there. But yeah, and that's the other thing is like, does he need to? I mean, I think we all know they're have kind of openly shopped him for going on 6 months or so now. So I think this is one where, for me, unless there's a Kyrie Irving trade or a much bigger, wild, the kind of thing that people who spend all day on the trade machine dream up actually comes to life, happens. I think he's gonna go to camp with the Lakers, and we're gonna see what this looks like and play it out. And my guess is it's probably LeBron looking at it and saying, all right, it's mid-July. We're all about to go on vacation, like real vacations for, a month or so. Let's get everybody together. Let's just have a quick chat to say like, hey, can we kind of, just, are we all good? We're good. All right. We'll see everybody in September. And then we go from there.
Right. And I mean, this means, the Lakers are still going to do what they can to move him.
Sure.
This is, for most Lakers fans, this is devastating. Let's just be honest, right? The idea of Russell Westbrook in uniform again next season is horrifying. But I also think he's better than what we saw last season. Not to say it will work or it's going to work if he does come back. Mm-hmm. I also think it's interesting that we've seen Chris Haynes, Woj, everybody has mentioned if he returns next season. And this, I don't think this is locked in. He's back next season. That's it. This is done. I think they're still going to do what they can to move him. They're just saying, look, in the event that you wind up back on the team next season, let's make sure that we know where everything's at and we can bring in a training camp, because that was some of the discussion this morning. We had Jovan Buha from The Athletic mentioned that, look, LeBron, Russ, I mean, clearly the Lakers have been shopping him, the stuff with the agent. This is getting worse. And maybe we start getting to the point where they just tell him stay home. Like that's what we were looking at. So perhaps this is sort of pushing back against that narrative and saying, look, it's not that bad. It's not at that stage right now.
Yeah, I don't think this is a, from the player or team side, a Ben Simmons situation where it's like, oh gosh, like everybody just stay away. This is going to be too bad for everybody. I think this is a situation of, hey, let's get into camp. Let's see where it goes. At this point, not to get too crazy with it, and we'll talk about it. We're probably going to save the Lakers offseason review a little bit later, just because if they do make a trade, we don't have to redo the whole thing. But if he is back, they kind of need him because they don't have a ton at point guard. That is still kind of a little bit of a position of need, quite frankly. And some of that is, well, we've got Kim at 47 million. We've got Kendrick Nunn at 5 million. That's already 52 million in this one position. How much money are we going to invest in this one spot? But I think it's one of those things where my guess is Darvin Ham is kind of in the lab with his assistants working on, and if we bring Russ back and we got to run with this, how do we make this work? And it's funny because now you're seeing some resurfacing of like, if he just cuts more, if he does this, if he does that, if play him off the ball, all these things. And it's like, yeah, we've been talking about this since he was with
For
the Thunder
years.
with Kevin Durant.
Yes.
Like, is he capable of changing? Maybe he is. I mean, he's deep into his career. Maybe he is going to be like, hey, I got to show I can do some stuff. But I still don't think any of that precludes the Lakers from all the way up into and including the trade deadline, trying to trade him. I think they're going to continue to keep working on it because I think they know in their heart of hearts, no matter how good it's going, there's better fits and they could be doing something better with somebody else. So yeah, I don't know that the three of them talking really changes all that much beyond, yeah, hey, we're all on the same page. You'd be ready to work in September when we regroup. Let's go. And I think that's kind of, not uncommon. I think it's just more of, hey, we got to talk because everybody saw us not talk in Vegas and, all that stuff. And off we go.
Now, the report was that they talked during Summer League. They all hopped on the phone, which then people are saying, well, why did LeBron and Russell Westbrook not even acknowledge each other at Summer League? It was odd. But in any event, we always talk about reading between the lines, trying to figure out who benefits, potentially where this could have come from. Where do you think this is coming from, this report, and who benefits from it?
It's probably, my guess is more from the Lakers side of things. Lakers and maybe combined with, and I'm not trying to make the cheap Lakers clutch or the same thing joke. But I do wonder if it's Lakers and LeBron camp, a little bit of, hey, before everybody kind of goes their separate ways here for the next month and a half, let's make sure we get something out there that, like, hey, these guys are actually good, because we don't need the rampant speculation continuing to go on and on. Because I mean, you know it and feel it way more than I do. I mean, when they didn't talk at Summer League, all my timeline was for 2 days was these two guys hate each other and it's done and the Lakers are falling apart and all that stuff. And none of that I think is true. So my guess is it was probably Lakers, LeBron camp combined of, hey, let's make sure everybody knows, like, we've talked, we're all on the same page, we're ready to go.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that again, particularly with the report coming out this morning where they're talking about how it's, Jovan Buha saying that maybe it's getting close to, hey, Russ, just don't come to camp. That type of situation. I think this is kind of a response to that to some degree. But in any event,
to be honest, though, would it shock you if tomorrow it was like, Russ, don't come to camp?
No.
Like, none of this would surprise me at this point.
No. At this point, we've heard so many leaks and counter leaks and so many different things about different players, and who knows exactly where this is going to.
That ship's so leaky. That thing's sitting on the bottom of the ocean right now.
Yeah, right now, all we're hearing is everything from. We've heard every single rumor out there, and who knows ultimately where this is going to wind up. But in any event, let's move on from the Russell Westbrook madness. Let's talk a little bit about something that did happen very quickly. 3 minutes. It took the Suns 3 minutes to match the Pacers' offer for DeAndre Ayton. We haven't talked about this yet.
About it more for like an entire show.
Yeah, that it took the Suns to match it. So, okay, so let's get into this then. Then why, and I know I put it as a title, the Pacers, now that Ayton's offer is matched, but why did the Suns do this then? If they were so determined to keep DeAndre Ayton, why not just come to a deal with him themselves? Because every answer I can come up with sounds really bad for the Suns.
Yeah, my guess is the Suns left it with, hey, here's what we'll do. This is the contract we will give you, whether that was a 4 year at the 8% raises max, and that's what it'll be, because we know it wasn't the 5 year because they were very clear about that. But whether they left it as that's what we'll do. Clearly, they didn't like any of the sign and trade options that were presented to them, whether that be with Brooklyn, or maybe Brooklyn didn't like it, or with Indiana. Indiana clearly, I think, would have done a sign and trade, but the reporting was very, very clear that the Suns had no interest in that, which says to me they, for whatever reason, they didn't want Miles Turner. So that leaves it with, all right, here's what we're going to do. This was not a go out and get an offer sheet. And if it's more than, 4 years, 100 million is what we're topping out as. If you get more, we'll see where it goes. This was just go sign an offer sheet and then we'll match it. Very clearly was, whatever it is. And if nothing else, the Suns got him slightly cheaper because he's only going to get 5% raises than 8%. But in the end, I think all you did was kind of probably further weaken the relationship with the player. He's probably pretty pissed. I don't understand from the Pacers side why there's not a player option on year 4, why there's not a 15% trade bonus.
They didn't do anything to make it hurt.
Yeah, make it hurt. Make it hurt. So, and then if you really like him, 3 years from now, he's a free agent anyway, and you can go get him then. Well, maybe, your guys are a little older and a little more ready. So, yeah, from the Suns side, like strictly the basketball side, this is good for the Suns, provided, he shows up and he's motivated and he plays and does all his normal DeAndre Ayton stuff. They had nothing else at center. It was Bismack Biyombo, and that was it. Now you've basically running it back with your guys, a couple guys on the bench that you added for depth reasons, but running it back's not the worst thing. I mean, this team, they fell apart, and whether that was COVID related or all these other issues, maybe that's what it was, but it all fell apart on them late in that Mavs game. That game 7 was a disaster. And, I would look at it and be like, all right, we're probably somewhere between the NBA Finals team of 2 years ago and the team that fell apart in game 7. And to me, that's good enough to be in the mix to make the finals again with DeAndre Ayton in the fold.
They have to at some point move him, I would imagine, because look at what happened with Gordon Hayward and the Jazz. The Jazz did this to Gordon Hayward. They said, well, we're not sure what we want to give you. Go find your own contract and we'll match it. Ultimately, Gordon Hayward, when he had the opportunity to, he left, because that's not a great way to build a relationship with the player. I think that from the Suns' perspective, this is smart in terms of making sure that you can get something for him.
Yep.
I don't think it's smart if you're of the mindset that this is our long-term answer in the middle. I think it's more of let's make sure that we don't lose him for nothing. And then at some point down there, maybe it's a year from now, maybe it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it could be at the trade deadline. At some point, they're going to move on from DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, we're not going to be, knock on wood, doing this show, 8 to 10 years from now, talking about DeAndre Ayton, wrapping up his, third contract with the Suns. And, wow, can you remember back when he, looked like he was gone? It's not going to play out that way. I'd be very surprised if he's there more than a couple of years. But yeah, well, we'll see now. He will be movable by the trade deadline. Big number, but not impossible to move. So we'll see where that goes. And heck, by that point, you may still have the Pacers sitting on a crap ton of cap space, and maybe then that's when. Well, not this year because it can't
go
happen
to the Pacers this year.
But maybe next off season that's where he ends up with, or something like that. So we'll see. Yep. And reason why he can't and I shouldn't even have said it the way I said it, but the reason why he can is you can't trade him to a team that you match an offer sheet on for 1 year. That's probably best known as the Allen Crabbe situation, where the Blazers matched an offer sheet from the Nets for Allen Crabbe and then turned around exactly on the 1 year restriction expiring and traded him back to the Nets, which was a weird situation in and of itself. But and then Ayton also, now he gets a no trade clause too for the full year, for 1 year after matching. He has to agree to any trades that happen with this one. So Pacers side of this, you took a shot.
Yep.
You didn't get him. Nothing really lost here. You waived a few guys who probably weren't part of things anyway, moving forward in Indiana. So now you're going to be sitting there with a whole bunch of cap space. And they're, I said it, the Pacers and the Spurs, they're going to be everybody's third team in on every trade moving forward here with, anything that's with Westbrook, Kyrie, KD, Donovan Mitchell, whoever it is. Everybody's going to be, throwing those teams in there because they have the ability to absorb all sorts of salary. While still got Miles Turner, kind of an interesting guy that could be on the move. So yeah, I think let's see where the Pacers go. I think we're ways away from that final story being written in Indiana yet.
Absolutely, more moves to come there for sure. One thing that did happen, KZ Okpala wound up with the Sacramento Kings, who continued to make moves and have it. The Kings had a pretty solid offseason, pretty solid summer, including something else that we're going to get to in just a minute.
Yeah, I wrote for Spot Track today. I wrote my 10 best value deals from free agency, whether it be free agent signings or contract extensions. And I had Malik Monk on the list. I thought they get a great deal with Malik Monk. Just slightly less than the full mid level for him. He adds a really good shooter to them. But KZ Okpala is interesting. He played for Mike Brown on the I believe it's the Nigerian national team for Mike Brown. Mike Brown was very complimentary of him. He was somebody the Heat really liked and talked up. They moved him ultimately in a salary clearing move, which also involved some freeing up some pick protections and the like to Oklahoma City. And then Oklahoma City waived him because they just didn't have room for another forward. But yeah, he can play. So I'm interested to see what happens here. They kind of needed another long rangy forward there just to kind of fit in the mix with their other guys. So I think this is a pretty good signing for the Kings.
And then we also have Keegan Murray from the Sacramento Kings wins Summer League MVP. Look, there was a lot of question marks about them taking Keegan Murray. Some people felt like that was a little bit of a reach, but so far, and look, Summer League is by no means the end all be all in terms of player evaluation. This doesn't mean he's a superstar in the making. Nicolas Skidishvili would say otherwise. But Keegan Murray, Summer League MVP, Kings fans that gotta at least feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I thought he looked great throughout Summer League, whether it was the California Classic or then in Las Vegas. He played really well. He looked really smooth getting his shot off. That's always a question for these guys at Summer League is, can they get the shot off? And then the next is, does the shot go in when they get it off? And the answer to both was yes, at least so far. So far so good. That Kings team's really kind of interesting. I tweeted today. I kind of feel like all 30 teams, there's something to watch with all 30 teams.
Oh, yeah.
I realize some of this is, we're 3 months out from the regular season starting, and I'm already starting to miss it all. But I do feel like, the Kings are going to be one of those teams where I'm going to be happy when it's, 10 o'clock here on the East Coast. And it's like, all right, we got the Kings tonight. All right, cool. I'm definitely going to tune in and watch them because I think they have a chance to be pretty fun.
More watchable than in seasons past, for sure.
Yes.
Hopefully. Yeah. The NBA is going to be investigating the PJ Tucker signing. Not a surprise. How far before did we know that PJ Tucker was going to Philly? It was days, right?
Yeah, Mark
It wasn't
Stein,
like one day. It was
I believe
a while.
Mark Stein wrote about it on June 26th. So that's like 4 full days out from the start of free agency. And then there were some others that were also kind of putting stuff out there. That was about the same time we heard Harden was going to opt out and take less money and those kind of things. So yeah, that's a little far in advance. And I gotta believe the Miami Heat, after somebody blew the whistle on them last year and they ended up losing the draft pick, I gotta believe the Heat are thinking, hey, wait a minute, who's talking to our free agent? Days in advance. So yeah, and to be clear, Mark Stein was the one who wrote it's expected. But if we're writing it's expected, and I've heard from a few teams that are thinking like, I think Bobby Marks has put it out there in the world too, that that's probably going to get looked at as well. So yeah, my guess is there's going to be at least some level of, what happened here.
Well, and I would have to imagine that the Knicks are going to get dinged for Jalen Brunson as well.
Oh yeah. That's one, I think Stein wrote, that one's like very widely expected.
And I think they knew it too and just said, whatever, we'll take the slap on the wrist and,
I think for some of these teams, it's like, all right, so we lost a second round pick. Who cares? Miami trades those things every year anyway, so I really don't think they care at all.
Yep.
They do some of their best work on the undrafted market anyway. But yeah, it's yeah, and it's just further proof. Like let's do something, figure something out with this tampering stuff, so that we're not all getting caught up in this.
Speaking of the Knicks, Donovan Mitchell, his trade market appears to be expanding. Not what Knicks fans want to hear. Knicks fans want to hear the deal is done and Donovan Mitchell's going to New York. But it sounds like what's going on is the Jazz they've had conversations with the Knicks. They know what the Knicks are offering, have a pretty good feel of what that offer's at. And now they're going to go check around the rest of the league and see what the rest of the league will give them in a deal for Donovan Mitchell. I still think ultimately he winds up in New York. But Danny Ainge and co. are going to make the Knicks wait a little bit and see what they can get. Probably going to be a pretty decent return for Mitchell. So we'll see where that ultimately winds up. But it's possible. I mean, another team could come in and offer something that the Knicks just can't quite match. And next thing you know, Donovan Mitchell's off somewhere else. But I still think the Knicks have got to be the favorite here.
Yeah, I think it probably is too. And I think this is probably a little bit of then the Jazz come back with, hey, here's what we have for other offers. Like, you want to, add to it. I'm going to go off topic just slightly here because it's related to this. Where I saw this news was through a Woj thing on YouTube. And it's like, man, like I gotta already follow Twitter and watch NBA Today and watch all these other things. Like I gotta now go find you on YouTube too. Like, come on, stay off our corner. Let us have this little corner here. You just tweet and write stuff. But that's just me being a gripe of being old and not wanting to have to continue to open more tabs in my browser. But anyway, I think what he's saying makes sense, right? It's when the Knicks are being asked for, we want Toppin and Grimes and Quickly. And then we also want, 6 first-round picks and all that stuff. The Knicks are like, all right, we're going to take either a couple players or a couple picks out. You got to make up your mind. We're not giving it all. And I think the Jazz are looking at it and saying, well, hey, the 6 first-round picks, a couple of those are pretty heavily protected picks from the Pistons and Wizards, like that may not convey for years. Like, well, when they do convey, they're going to be non-lottery. Like, where are we going with this? So, that's going to ultimately be the back and forth, right? Is how many kids do the Knicks want to give up and how many picks? And then my guess is like I think it'll still ultimately be the Knicks, and they'll budge and give in, on something, but we'll see. I mean, this is going to be the way this goes back and forth. And, in the meantime, maybe some surprise team does jump in there and say, hey, we'll snag Donovan Mitchell now because he's still young enough to fit with a lot of teams that are kind of on the way back up. And he's obviously good enough to fit with, any team that's trying to go for it. So, yeah, I mean, there should be a pretty wide market for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think this is part of the process, but we'll keep an eye on exactly where he winds up. I still think the Knicks are in the lead. The Spurs did a little bit of business, keeping Keldon Johnson, 4 years, $80 million for him. Solid player, young player too, for a rebuilding team to hang on to. What do you think about them spending this money though? Is this good value, do you think, for the Spurs, for a team that's trying to turn things around here, potentially build for the future?
I think 20 million average annual value for Keldon Johnson is an absolute steal.
All right.
I think this guy is awesome. He last year he averaged almost it was over 17 points per game. He was at really good shooting splits. He's good with the ball in his hands. That's probably where he's come the furthest. Pretty good spot up shooter too. Defends, he can rebound. His passing is coming along pretty quickly. I think this year he kind of becomes the face of that team moving forward. And all of a sudden we're looking at it as like, man, remember when the Spurs got Derek White on a really good deal, then DeJounte Murray on a really good deal? I think a year or two from now, we're like, man, they have Keldon Johnson on a really good deal because I just think this guy is fantastic. So I think this is a huge win for San Antonio.
All right. So nice move there for the Spurs to be able to get him on this deal. We also saw the Jazz made a move. Simone Fontsio winds up with the Jazz. This was a guy who we were starting to get these little rumors that he was going to be coming to the NBA, but it wasn't quite clear where exactly he was going to wind up. Got some size, can shoot the three a bit, has the ability to attack off the bounce. Not the quickest, but I think the Jazz have got something here in him that could prove to be pretty useful, particularly as they look to build into the next phase of their franchise. What are your thoughts on this move?
I think this is Danny Ainge repeating his Boston rebuild playbook a little bit here. He went to, after making all the trades with the Nets and then starting that whole cycle of tearing down the roster all the way and rebuilding it. One of the things he did was he went to Europe and he got guys like Brad Wanamaker, Shane Larkin, Phil Pressey, and then Daniel Tice was probably his biggest success that he got to come over. A couple years later, I think he's starting the process here again, and they're under the tax. This is part of the non-taxpayer mid-level for Fontecchio on a 2-year deal. My guess is the team's probably pretty protected on that second year, but if not, it's not going to be that much money anyway. I think it's a little over $6 million, so talking $3 million each year or so. So yeah, I think this is Ainge. He knows what works, and I think he's going back to it and basically saying, all right, let's kind of run back what I know has worked for me in the past. Let's get this guy in, give him a look. There's probably going to be plenty of minutes available, and we'll see where it goes from there.
All right, we've got last thing, Austin Rivers winding up with the Wolves. And this was the veteran guard that we kept looking at saying, gosh, he's going to wind up somewhere. He's too good not to be on a team. Now all eyes on Dennis Schroeder to see where he ultimately winds up. But Austin Rivers, I think this is a nice fit for the Wolves. I mean, he's not a world beater or anything like that, but he can give you solid minutes. He can be an innings eater for you. I like it for Minnesota.
I think it's great. I mean, he did really well with Denver. Played well there. Obviously, Tim Connolly knows and likes him from getting him to the Nuggets. He did a nice job filling in for Jamal Murray. He was kind of, I think now he's no more as a defender than he is anything else. But yeah, I think this is a really good pickup for Minnesota. Good guy to bring in for a little bit more guard depth. They've got right now Jordan McLaughlin and Jalen Noel, probably their two backup guards, but the Rivers in that mix with those guys, and you're pretty well set behind D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards. I thought it was interesting. There were some reports out of Minnesota this week. I forget. I think it was Chris Hine, who's one of their local beat writers, had done an interview with Chris Finch, the head coach. One of the things he was talking about was, everybody's gonna have to guard their own position a little bit more because they're probably going to be a little more traditional with their lineup sets, and I think Rivers fits in well with that because he can really hold his own against any guard in the league, and he generally does well against most of the smaller threes also. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is a good fit. We did miss one though.
Oh, what did we miss?
Williams extension.
Oh, I did. How did I miss him? I am so sorry, Kenrich. I even have it queued up. I just skipped it. 4 years, $27 million for Kenrich Williams. Again, given the value of wings right now in the NBA, I was surprised at this dollar value. I thought for sure he'd get, when he did that extension, a bit more. I understand he's not on the level of a Keldon Johnson or something like that, but still, I think this is a pretty solid value for the Thunder. Curious to see, maybe off the top of your head, are there any player or team options in this contract?
There's reporting coming out of Oklahoma City that the last year is a team option. We'll see if that's a true team option or if that's a non-guaranteed year. They get often reported as the same thing, even though there are some differences between them. But yeah, we'll find out with that. But yeah, I mean, essentially just under $7 million a year. Really good value for Kendrick Williams. I think this guy is, really become a really good, solid player. I think more too, this sends a message a little bit to a guy maybe like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Hey, see, we kept Lou Dort. We signed you to the big extension. Keeping Kendrick Williams, we're now committed to. This is now time to start building up, right? They've cashed in some of the pick hoard over the last couple years in trades, started to move some things forward. I think this is a sign of we kind of like the guys we got here. We're going to start building around them all on pretty reasonable contracts, and let's start pushing things forward. So yeah, this is a great deal. And I'm like you. I thought maybe he goes to free agency and gets a little bit more, but it was made very clear at the trade deadline last year. He didn't want to be traded. He was like, I want to stay here. I like it here. I've found a home here. This is where I want to be. And clearly the Thunder felt the same. So this is a good one for both player and team.
And let's face it, if you're Oklahoma City and you've got a guy who's a useful player and expressing that they want to stay in OKC, they're not exactly a free agent magnet market. Nope. So it's probably wise to do what you can to hang on to that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And now you get a guy who can kind of play 2 through 4 in most different lineup constructions, can do a lot of different things. 4, you definitely can play both the 2 and the 3 and really defend. So yeah, I mean they're pretty well put together there.
All right. Well, now that actually wraps things up for today. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show. Don't forget as well, we've got our Clips channel. I'll put the link in the description below. Go check out some of our short form content. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.